Let me talk about functions and overloading in C++. Function is basically a cohesive logic or code put together with the purpose of performing a specific task. In functional programming, like in C, function is also seen as a module. Function overloading is actually re-implementing or writing a different body or logic for a function. Name of the function is going to be the same. To allow the compiler to differentiate the original function and the overloaded function, the signature of the overloaded function is made different from that of the original, and there can be multiple overloaded functions, and the purpose of this function would be to perform same tasks differently in different contexts. Let me jump into the coding to explain it further. Here I have a basic skeleton C++ code. Let me first make sure that this code actually compiles. This is the code I have, main.cpp. Let me compile it. C++ 23 version, output file, source file. I have main.exe created. Now it compiles. Since I don't have anything in the editor, so it doesn't display anything, but this is the program that actually compiles and runs. Now let me include the library to use input auto operators. Highway stream, and first what I want to do is I want to do some I want to create some variables to store the data. Let me have the data for a student ID and character name array. Maximum number of characters is going to be, let's say, 63, and monthly expense, so it's going to be double type. These three variables will hold the information about a student. Now what I want to do is let me have some dummy data in this variable. ID 1001, name is going to be, let's say, Jackson, and expenses 2111.11. What I want to do is I want to have a function this data. So a function has two things. One is prototype and another is the definition or implementation. Prototype is also called as declaration and definition. So if I want to display the data, then I will not have anything to for the function to return. So I would put a return type void and display name of the function, and we have the parameters here. when I talk about the overloading, I also need to talk about the signature of the function. I will come to that in a moment. I want to actually display ID. And use a cout. Right, so this is the function which displays ID, receives integer value and displays this value as ID. And let me also have another function, display function, and it will receive the name as a constant character pointer and display that data. Now we have the two versions of the function. The same the two functions have the same name, display and display. So now you can consider this as the original function, and then this function as a overloaded version of the function. In the overloading, in function overloading, you have the same name of the function, but the signature is different. So you need to know what is signature, right? Signature comprises name of the function, parameters, number of parameters, and types of parameters, right? So in this in this first function, we have the signature actually is computed by using the name display, and number of parameters is 1 and the type is integer. In the second case, you have the function name display and number of parameter is again 1 and type is constant character pointer. Now if you have difference in any one of these things, the compiler will regard those functions as a different function. So now this is a valid legal overloaded version of this function to display the name. I want to have another overloaded version of this function to display the expense. Expense is of double type, so I will have double type data receiving and right. So in this case, the function name is display, number of parameter is expense, and the type is double. Therefore, these three functions are different functions, but they are overloaded version of the same function. I mean, overloaded functions with the same name. Now I want to use these three functions here to display the data, right? Let me first call display function and pass ID to it. Naturally, what will happen is based on the type of the parameters, it will look for a function with the same signature that receives integer type. So this invocation will be linked to this function and display name. Now this invocation will be actually linked to this function, and finally expense, right? So this invocation will be linked to this third version of the function. Now I want to actually put some character in between this display, so I would like to put let's say comma, and finally a new line character. So now this should be this line of code should be displaying ID followed by comma, name followed by comma, and the expense. Let me see the output of this code in the terminal. I would like to compile the code, compile and link, and execute. Now you can see ID is displayed. This was the outcome of the invocation of the first version of the function. This was the outcome of invocation of the second version of the function, and this was the outcome of the invocation of third version of the function. Back to the editor. Now these are three display overloaded version of the function. What I want to do is I want to have a single another display function which will receive all three data and display. So I want this function to receive int id, const character pointer name, and double. Here in this place I would put this line of to copy and paste this line of text, but that is not a recommended way, good programming style. If you have you already have a function that performs a pretty specific task, then you should try to reuse that function or reuse the logic in that function. So to display id, I would actually call the first version of the function with pass parameter id to it, and then essentially I can put this entire thing there. So all these statements copy and paste, right? So this will actually look for the function with integer parameter, only one integer parameter, so it will display the id, and this followed by comma, and the second function will actually call the second version of the function name, and this invocation will call the third version of the function. So it will look into the nature of the arguments passed, and then it will look for the function with the corresponding signature. So now these four functions are actually overloaded versions of the display function. With this I can only invoke this display function from the main function code, pass id and name and expense, right? I think this will actually solve the purpose. It will invoke this function, and then from this function it will internally invoke this version of the function, and then followed by this version of the function, followed by this version of the function. Let me see the output of this code. Compile, link, execution. Now you can see the same thing has been displayed. Switching back to the editor. Now these are the functions for displaying the data. I would also like to instead of hard coding or putting initializing the data in the statement like this, I would like to have a function to read the data into these variables, right? So for that I would like to have a function before that let me try to explain the difference between prototype and definition or implementation. What I have written here is actually implementation. So if we want to differentiate between prototype and the declaration, then what I would do is just copy everything and put in the place of definition, and prototype is the thing that remains in the first line. So this is the prototype of the function. So these are the prototypes of the four versions of the function, and these are their implementations. The prototype doesn't need to have the name of the parameter, but sometimes the people want to have this name for clarity, but only type is type information is required. And once you have prototypes placed in this place, and it's okay to move this implementation after the main function, or after you actually use, because this is a place where you use this function. And if the compiler knows that the prototype and signature, then compiler sees these are okay, valid functions, so compiler will not complain. Otherwise you'll have compiler complaining. Now these are the function for displaying. Now I want to have a function for reading the data. This is going to be a function to read integer type data. I'm having only prototype. In this case you cannot have constant character pointer, because data that this function will read is going to be written in this parameter. So you need to pass pointer. In this case also you cannot just pass by value, so you need to pass by reference or pass by pointer. I'm going to be passing by reference here, and double pass by reference, because this function will actually make change to the argument that is passed it. Now implementation of this read function. Just putting the curly braces for the body of the functions, and I want to put the name of the parameter, ID, and expense. Right here you want to prompt the user to enter user ID, so enter ID, read it, so you prompt the user to enter the name, and in this case if there's going to be a problem if this function is invoked with invalid pointer or null pointer. In that case you want to actually maybe check, validate the data. If name is not equals to null PTR, then you ask the user to enter. Otherwise you can do certain things, maybe display some things that you may choose to do nothing, or you may choose to display some error message. Something like this. Here again prompt enter expense, right. These are three functions, overloaded version of read function to read the different data. And I want to have a function like this, read function, to read all three information together. Enter reference, ID, character pointer name, and double now from here from inside the function, just call the first function read call the read function with the name parameter argument, and right, so I think this should be sufficient for this reading the operation. So now I'm going to be using this read function. I also need to put a prototype of this function on the top, otherwise compiler will complain if I use it. So I have the prototype, semicolon. Now here I want to actually call that function id, name, and expense, right? So this function will actually call the read function, which will actually read all the data, and then after that this function will call the display function, which will display that data, right? Let me right, so let me see this code in action. Compile. Looks like there is some problem. Let me see what is it. Try to fix it. Name. No mass operator. Oh, yeah, I think I did a small mistake here. So when I actually read here, because this is received as a pointer, so I cannot do that like that. So I will have to create a local array. Let me call it L name, local name, 64 character, and I can use this read in local name, and then after that you just do copying to name. And to use strcpy, I will probably need to include CString library. Okay, now I hope that problem will go away. Let me try one more time. So compile. Now the problem is gone. Okay, now I have this file main.exe. It is asking me to enter ID. I'm going to be entering 2002 ID, name Sarah, expenses 3,000. Now you can see the data was read by the read function. From the read function, overloaded version of other functions were called to read ID, name, and expense, and it was displayed by the display function. From within that function, the other overloaded version of the functions were actually invoked. This is all I plan to discuss in this video. In the next video, I will talk about namespaces. Thank you for watching this video.